Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Here's what's making news right now.
This community is being hit hard. It can no longer afford another year of losing a travel season, and these types of restrictions cause pain in the community. Time to remove the land border testing requirement and do it now.
Pain, a lot of pain. I have family, friends there, and I just don't understand this. We want peace. We never provoked anyone.
If you just do the math and crunch the numbers on what a person making, minimum wage or even $25 an hour, it's nearly impossible to make all of the payments that we have to make.
Thanks for joining us. We begin tonight at the border and the vigorous demands to remove all COVID-19 testing at land crossings. Border city mayors from across Ontario and national tourism officials call the requirement pointless and say many in the tourism industry won't survive another season with these rules in place. The CBC's Jason Vio brings us the story.
Mushedre Vineyards, just outside of Windsor, is a popular spot for day-tripping Americans from Michigan. Right now, in the winter months, more than 60% of its business once was U.S. tourists. In the summer, that number was more than 30%. Most of that wiped away by land border closures and testing restrictions.
It's crazy because we relied so heavily on the U.S. market, but I would say, especially during the winter, it has been so grim.
Right now, people entering Canada must get a negative PCR test within 72 hours of arriving at the border. Starting Monday, travelers will be able to take a cheaper rapid antigen test no more than 1 day before crossing. Still, there's a widespread call to end this testing altogether.
Travel restrictions have now become obsolete, and it's devastating places like Niagara Falls.
We need to end pointless testing at the land border and have a plan to return not only the land border, but also our air and water borders to normal.
Having the requirement for a test is really an optical illusion of safety. It is providing no real protection.
The Tourism Industry Association of Canada estimates its $105 billion industry has been sliced in half due to COVID and the restrictions. With it meant a loss of hundreds of thousands of jobs, many they say won't come back.
If we miss a third summer, our sector will be at serious risk of collapse, and the booking window for summer is now. These rules continue to devastate these border communities and the anchor businesses like hotels that underpin them.
Empty hotel rooms means fewer visitors back at Mushedre Vineyards, and less busy restaurants translates into far fewer bottles of wine flowing to eateries, showing just how these interconnected industries rely so much on cross-border tourism.
I mean, it's been 2 years. Been 2 years. So we need that border open.
Two doctors at McMaster University say the risk for travelers is the same as those in busy urban settings, and that border testing may not actually prevent people from spreading the virus. A Health Canada spokesperson wouldn't say when all the border testing requirements will be removed, only that decisions evolve based on data, science, and the COVID situation in Canada as well as around the world. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
Western governments have ratcheted up economic consequences against Russia and its leader for the invasion of Ukraine. And NATO says it will continue to send weapons to Ukraine, including air defense systems. But a direct military intervention is not being openly discussed, leaving Ukrainians to face the Russian invasion on their own. Sasha Petrusik reports.
Crowds trying to leave from the Kyiv railway station were so thick today. Soldiers fired in the air to keep order. As shells from advancing Russian forces exploded in the suburbs, others jammed the roads to escape. But in the capital today, many stayed.
We want to show to all the people, to all world, we are not scared.
Lines of armed civilians ready to stand up to whatever Russia throws at them as they brace for a ground attack. Teams of soldiers burning government documents so they don't fall into enemy hands. Defiance is the sentiment in this besieged city, expressed overnight by Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky. The citizens are here and we are out here, he says. to defend our independence. We will fight to the end. Indeed, Ukraine's damaged but partly functional air defenses reportedly managed a direct hit on a Russian aircraft. Zelensky has offered to negotiate with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who first seemed to agree, but then insisted that the Kyiv leadership be replaced by the Ukrainian army.
Берите власть в свои руки.
Take power in your own hands, he told the generals. It will be easier for us to negotiate an agreement. Putin brushed aside threats of sanctions from the West, the kind European Union ministers and the United States aimed directly at Putin himself today. Ukraine wants that, but it says military help is much more urgent. Weapons, ammunition, and even fighters, if any foreigner dares volunteer. Defiance may not be enough in Kyiv, where a woman sings the Ukrainian national anthem. She ends with a tearful, "Long live Ukraine." Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
Windsorites with Ukrainian roots took their cries for help to the street today. Rally organizers raising the alarm as Russia invades Ukraine. They are urging people to help those who are now fleeing the country. CBC's Jennifer Lagrassa reports.
Helplessness and shock. That's what many who rallied to show their support say they are feeling. During the rally, Yevhen Bozlovak was FaceTiming a friend who is in Ukraine. He says they try to check in very often these days, unsure if the last time they talk will be goodbye.
Pain, a lot of pain. I have family, friends there, and I just don't understand this. We want peace. We never provoked anyone. There is no reason for this. At this day and age, it's just genocide. It should not be happening. I'm sorry. I can't even explain the pain. I pray for people back home.
Bozlovak and dozens of others rallied together Friday outside of the Ukrainian National Federation office on Ottawa Street. They are raising awareness of what is happening and informing people on ways they can help the refugees. This is the second day of fighting after Russia invaded Ukraine, sending bombs and troops to attack. Russian Canadians here say they are upset by what they see and are in disbelief. They also worry for family back home.
I never believed he's going to actually start. I thought it's going to be, as you said, bluff, but I think by doing this, he made a huge mistake. People will never forgive him. I know it's going to touch each and every family in Ukraine right now. People will lose their family members, and they're already losing. And I've been watching closely, and I know Russians will lose their family members as well.
The past few days, I've been honestly heartbroken to hear all the news, and heartbroken, depressed, and with feeling of absolute helplessness and lost.
Meanwhile, those at the rally say they are standing up against the invasion and need more people and governments to do the same. Jennifer Lagrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Canada is expanding its sanctions in response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. They will directly target President Vladimir Putin, his top aides, and his allies.
We will be imposing sanctions on President Putin and his fellow architects of this barbaric war, his chief of staff and foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov. These men bear the greatest responsibility for the death and destruction occurring in Ukraine. Additionally, I am confirming Canada's support to remove Russia from the SWIFT payment system, a critical part of the global banking system. Canada is also announcing that we will levy additional sanctions on Belarus and its leaders for abetting President Putin's invasion of a free and sovereign nation.
The Prime Minister says Canada is prepared to take further steps as required. Ottawa will also be matching any donations made to the Canadian Red Cross Ukraine Humanitarian Crisis Appeal, up to a total of $10 million. Turning now to other local news. Becoming a homeowner feels out of reach for some local renters. A recent housing report says fewer people can transition from renting to owning because of rising costs. And that includes the upswing in rent. CBC's Ashta Shetty has the full story.
It's been awful. It feels like everywhere kind of leads to nowhere.
Many Windsorites who want to stop renting and finally buy their first home are finding out it's almost impossible to keep up. First-time homebuyers say high rent and high prices are making it hard to compete with high bidders in Windsor's housing market. Matt Hebert says the dream to buy his first home remains far out of reach.
Like before I realized how bad the market was, I really wanted to I'm going to save up tons of money for a place. But now it's kind of like the last few years, it's kind of set in like, maybe I'll just realistically rent my whole life.
Meanwhile, in Tecumseh, Burke Morris decided 5 years ago to more proactively save for a down payment. He moved in with his parents to save money on rent, but he says it's not enough.
No. Every time I reach my savings goals, I need more to make my down payment. So it's it's a runaway market, and I do what I can to try and keep my focus.
The latest rental market report by Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation has found that within just a year, the cost of buying a home has gone up by 30% in Windsor. That increase having a ripple effect on the rental market. Prices there have gone up by 5.9% since 2020. The report says that although the number of rentals in Windsor has gone up by 245 units since 2020, demand has grown and the availability of vacant units has stayed relatively steady at 3.5%. It's squeezing an already tight rental market, and market analysts are worried that at some point there just won't be enough affordable rental units for everyone.
We haven't had people traveling. If you think about some of the stuff with temporary foreign workers, think about students around the University of Windsor. All these things have dampened the demand side of the story. And yet, even with these record increases on the supply, vacancies are flat.
The report says that less than half of all vacancies in 2021 were considered affordable, even to mid-income renters with a yearly income of $48,000. On top of that, qualifying for a mortgage also became more difficult due to higher mortgage rates. All of this has significantly reduced the options available to renters wishing to finally buy their first home. Ashta Shetty, CBC News, Windsor.
A Toronto firm has pulled the plug on diversity training for Sarnia City Council. The Kojo Institute is a consulting company which offers workshops in equity, inclusion, and anti-oppression. CBC News talked with representatives, but they would not provide specifics of the, quote, unfortunate moments that triggered the decision. That's because it happened during a closed session of council. They did say the person running the seminar felt there was an unsafe environment. Sarnia City Councillor Brian White is also bound by confidentiality, but says there was pushback from some people at the meeting who were not willing to listen.
Emotional and mental safety really is an important feature, especially when we're trying to learn about ideas regarding diversity. Emotional and mental safety, psychological safety can become under threat by all kinds of things. In this case, I would suggest it was a combination of words and tone, and lack of decorum that really showed a lack of respect for the person and the information being presented.
Now, when asked if anything racist was said, White said that would be a subjective determination and added he was very uncomfortable. A conference held for the first time this week is working to bring the Black business community and bankers face to face. The aim is to help Black Canadians overcome the impacts of systemic racism and open new opportunities. Organizers hope to make the summit an annual event, and they're also setting up working groups to push some of the innovative concepts forward. CBC's Kyle Bax has the story.
When he needed a bank loan to keep the lights on and door open at his studio last year, this photographer was irritated by the process. As an immigrant from Nigeria, he didn't have all the paperwork the bank wanted or understood a lot of the terminology in their forms.
Can I get somebody who's going to speak to me
to this particular question, but you never get those things.
Frustrated, he instead turned to friends and family for help.
I'll have you look a little bit in the dark.
His experience isn't unique, as many in the Black community face difficulties accessing funding from banks. The owner of this gift boutique tried to open the shop 15 years earlier, but didn't have collateral for a loan. Like many, Jackie Cassandi didn't have access to generational wealth.
So a large percentage of us don't have homes, don't have parents who can co-sign loans for us.
So she had to keep working other jobs and save up her money. Today, she's a leading voice calling for change and an organizer of this, the Black Business Summit.
Good morning, BEBC Black Business Summit.
Bringing together bankers and thousands from the Black business community, discussing how to improve loan applications, unlock other funding, and access more financial services.
All the communities that are left out can actually start getting a hand up.
The federal government launched a nearly $200 million loan program for Black entrepreneurs last year. Most major banks have similar funding programs, but they are still new and will take time to have an impact.
We're doing it differently as opposed to in the past, where we felt that it was just through sponsorship. We have to mentor, we need to be in the community, we need to start early.
Even those who have jumped through hurdles still face challenges. At this point, adding a second store location isn't possible, Cassandi says, because the financing available isn't big enough.
I still don't have collateral, and banks cannot count my current business as collateral. So those are the things we're talking with businesses with, is like, can we relook at the system and probably build an alternate entry point?
Black entrepreneurs like her say they don't want a handout, but more open doors when they need a bank's help. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
U.S. President Joe Biden made history today with his choice of a Black woman judge to fill an upcoming vacancy on the United States Supreme Court.
My nominee for the United States Supreme Court is Judge Ketanji Jackson.
51-year-old Ketanji Brown Jackson becomes the first Black woman to be nominated for a seat on the U.S. High Court. She is currently a federal appeals court judge in Washington, D.C. She is set to replace Stephen Breyer, who is retiring at the end of the court's current term. Her confirmation is virtually assured because the Democrats have a one-vote majority in the U.S. Senate. The hearings are expected to start mid-March. Let's take a live look outside there. You can see some of the snow that came down earlier today and more snow on the way tonight, and then mostly cloudy tomorrow. Nick Sturkovich will be here right after the break with our weekend weather forecast. Stay with us. Earlier this week, we brought you a story about potholes and how they're proliferating in Windsor. Well, wait till you look at this.
At its widest point, it's about, roughly 4 feet long. I was taking an alternate route to wherever I was going, and I got to this point, and I literally stopped to stare at it, because it's like flying over the Grand Canyon.
According to the city, it is the constant frost and thaw that's responsible for this spike in potholes this season in particular. So this is a good time to bring in Nick Sirkovich to find out, are we going to have many more Grand Canyons popping up in Windsor? Will it be frost or thaw this weekend, Nick?
Yeah, I can tell you about the frost or the thaw, Katerina. But yeah, I mean, any driver that's been out there this season can relate. And actually, I have to say, it does seem a little worse this year. I don't know if maybe my memory's just short, but
it is extra bad this season here as well.
Yeah. And we've had this sort of freeze thaw, and then of course the rainfall that we've seen as well doesn't help because it gets underneath. So with that in mind, there is more freeze thaw in the forecast, which I'm going to show you here, unfortunately. Hopefully, we're getting to the end of winter. -5 degrees right now is where we're sitting.
I accidentally outed Nick's location as not being here.
-5 is where we're sitting right now with the wind chill, -5. So not much to speak of in terms of the winds. A little bit, or feeling a little bit colder as we go out further toward the east. Still a few flurries here down around the Windsor area, but really just traced a couple centimeters of snow in the region. The system itself is pushed off, the one that was affecting southern Ontario, and now what we're looking at is just some lake effect here that's moving across the region. So a few flurries tonight, those are going to ease off. Tomorrow we've got just some cloud cover in the forecast. Out toward the London area, I think we may see a few flurries, but generally speaking stays dry into Sunday. We've got sunshine at least to start, and then we've got another front that's going to move through. I think Windsor might pick up a few flurries. Any accumulating snows, and when I say accumulating, like 1 centimeter toward London, maybe Sarnia. There's a look at the forecast accumulations through Sunday. So really not a big event here. If anything, just enough to sort of slick up the roads. The one thing that will factor into the forecast, though, is the winds. Tomorrow, winds out of the southwest by the afternoon, gust about 50 kilometers per hour. And then as we head into Saturday night and Sunday, gusts over 60 kilometers per hour, again, right out of the southwest, paralleling the shorelines of Lake Erie. Forecast tonight, minus double digits, anywhere from -11 to -14 wind chills, down to -20 in some places. For Windsor, the wind chill tonight down to -16. There's a look at the long-range forecast. So speaking of that freeze-thaw cycle, cloudy tomorrow, -2 degrees. We've got this cold weather in store for Sunday night. Windy conditions on both days. Little bit above zero, then it drops down, and then as we head through mid-next week, another system moves through, and this one, just because the temperatures are above zero, kind of a rain-snow mix.
Right. Roller coaster has just been the word for the weather lately. That's wild.
I know.
Thank you so much for that, Nick.
You bet.
Now, we're not getting extreme weather, but there has been a lot of extreme weather in Canada over the last couple of years. So we're going to tell you about how a group of quilters are marking that and paying some homage. Stay with us. The extreme weather that has hit Canada over the past couple of years is getting some special recognition. A group of quilters is giving the wild temperature swings and wicked winds a warm and comfy treatment. And the results are quite striking.
We always talk about the temperature, but you rarely have people cheering for -40. But that was purple, and so you wanted the -37s to the -40s. Or in the summer, the +40s, you know, because that was the deepest red. Most people chose to do the rainbow. And so the warmer colors, the yellow, orange, and red were your warm. White was your 0, and then your greens, your blues, and your purples were your colder temperatures. In 2020, the Guild came up with challenges, and a member of the Guild issues a challenge. So I issued the Temperature Quilt Challenge. And all I asked members to do was take a month or a year of temperatures and make them into a placemat, a wall hanging, or a quilt. I knew what mine was going to look like, but then you don't, because you don't know what the temperature is going to do. And I don't think anyone could have predicted how warm it was going to start in the early months and how warm and hot it would stay right till the next October. I ran out of material, would be one of the lows, and it's because it was so warm. And, you know, I'm talking, it's like March, it starts to get warm. So by the time I get to July and August, I have used up all the material I could find for that temperature. So you have to find something close. And then I ran out of that one. So that would be my only low. We have now just started year number 2. And yes, and so I know of 2 people right now that are continuing on. And what's exciting is one of the 2022 pieces is at a 3rd element, and it's wind gusts, and that's promoted by Environment Canada. So she has the daily high, the daily low, and then which way it's pointing is your wind gust.
What a beautiful idea. I love that. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. And we are, of course, tracking the situation in Ukraine, and you will find the latest on our website as well. We're also on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you for watching, and have a great weekend.